Have you ever noticed that some men remain calm when everything around them is collapsing, while others panic, overreact, or emotionally shut down? Pressure exposes the internal state of a man. When stress rises, the nervous system reveals whether it is trained, depleted, or disciplined. Semen retention works at this exact level, not as mysticism, but as a physiological and neurological recalibration that changes how pressure is processed inside the body. When a man constantly releases, his nervous system lives in a cycle of stimulation and crash. Dopamine spikes followed by depletion train the brain to seek relief rather than resilience. Under pressure, such a system defaults to anxiety, impulsive decisions, and emotional volatility. Semen retention interrupts this loop, forcing the nervous system to adapt to stillness, restraint, and internal regulation instead of constant discharge. From a biological perspective, semen retention increases baseline androgen sensitivity and stabilizes dopamine receptors over time. This means the brain becomes less reactive to external chaos. Pressure no longer hijacks the mind because the reward system is no longer fragile. Calmness under stress is not about suppressing emotion, it is about having a nervous system strong enough not to be overwhelmed by it. As retention continues, the parasympathetic nervous system becomes more active even during demanding situations. This is critical. Most men live in a chronic fight-or-flight state, where even minor challenges feel threatening. Semen retention shifts the body toward controlled alertness rather than panic. You remain aware, but not shaken. Focused, but not tense. This is where the concept of aura becomes grounded in reality. People sense calm because calm is measurable. Your breathing slows, your voice steadies, your movements become economical. Under pressure, others rush, you don't. That contrast is powerful. The aura people speak of is simply the visible effect of internal coherence. Psychologically, retention trains delayed gratification at the deepest level. When the body learns it does not need immediate release to survive, the mind becomes patient by default. Pressure often creates urgency, deadlines, confrontations, uncertainty. A retained man does not rush to escape discomfort. He stays present inside it, which gives him an advantage. Stress hormones like cortisol spike aggressively in men who lack internal regulation. Over time, this damages memory, decision-making, and emotional control. Semen retention supports hormonal balance by reducing compulsive stimulation, allowing the endocrine system to stabilize. Under pressure, cortisol rises less sharply, keeping cognition clear instead of clouded. This clarity is why retained men often describe pressure as sharpening rather than crushing. When the nervous system is not drained, stress becomes information, not threat. You can analyze instead of react. Listen instead of defend. Decide instead of escape. This is the calm dominance people mistake for confidence or authority. There is also a metabolic element. Semen production is biologically expensive. Constant loss signals scarcity to the body. Retention signals abundance. Under pressure, the body of a retained man behaves as if resources are sufficient, because internally, they are. Scarcity creates fear. Abundance creates calm. In social situations, pressure often comes from judgment. Being watched, evaluated, tested. Retention reduces the need for external validation because dopamine is no longer dependent on approval or stimulation. When pressure arrives, there is less to prove. less insecurity to protect. This is why retained men remain composed during confrontation. Over time, the brain associates pressure with growth instead of danger. This rewiring happens because retention removes the primary escape mechanism most men rely on. Without release as a coping strategy, the mind learns to process discomfort intelligently. Calmness becomes trained, not forced. The aura of calm is also behavioral. Retained men speak slower. They pause before responding. They maintain eye contact without tension. These behaviors unconsciously signal stability to others. In high-pressure environments, people gravitate toward whoever appears least shaken, not the loudest, but the steadiest. From a motivational standpoint, pressure is the gateway to leadership. Leaders are not defined by intelligence alone, but by composure when stakes are high. Semen retention cultivates this composure by aligning mind, hormones, and nervous system into a single direction rather than scattered impulses. Even in chaotic environments, the retained man's internal rhythm remains consistent. Heart rate variability improves. Breathing stays deep. Muscles remain relaxed but ready. This physiological state is optimal for performance under stress. Athletes, warriors, and executives all train toward it, often unknowingly replicating what retention naturally encourages. The calmness is not passive. It is alert calm. Like a predator observing before acting. Pressure does not freeze you because energy is not leaking. It accumulates. When action is required, it is decisive, not frantic. Over weeks and months, this becomes identity. You no longer try to stay calm. You are calm. Pressure tests others, but it confirms you. This is why people begin to trust you in critical moments, not because you promise strength, but because your nervous system demonstrates it. Semen retention does not remove stress from life. It removes chaos from within. That distinction matters. Life will always apply pressure. The question is whether pressure breaks you or reveals you. As your aura stabilizes, others subconsciously mirror your state. Rooms become quieter when you speak. Conflicts de-escalate when you enter. This is not dominance through force, it is dominance through regulation. The highest form of control is self-control under pressure. This is why ancient warrior traditions emphasized restraint. Not morality, efficiency. A man who leaks energy cannot hold ground when pressure rises. A man who retains becomes grounded, centered, and difficult to destabilize. Calmness under pressure is not weakness. It is stored power. It is energy that has not been wasted, redirected into presence and precision. Semen retention does not make you emotionless, it makes you unshakable. And when pressure becomes intense, when others panic, rush, or collapse, you remain still. Not because you feel nothing, but because you feel everything without being ruled by it. That is the aura. That is the discipline. This is why semen retention does not just change habits. It changes how you exist inside stress. You stop reacting to pressure and start commanding it. As pressure increases, most men unconsciously seek relief rather than resolution. This is where impulsive behaviors emerge: distraction, emotional outbursts, avoidance. Semen retention removes the habitual escape valve, forcing the mind to confront pressure directly. Over time, this builds psychological load-bearing capacity. Stress no longer feels foreign or overwhelming because the system has been trained to hold intensity without collapsing. Neuroscience supports this transformation. Repeated restraint strengthens prefrontal cortex control over limbic impulses. This is the same region responsible for executive function, emotional regulation, and long-term decision-making. Under pressure, the retained man does not lose access to rational thought because his brain is not conditioned for immediate gratification. Calmness becomes neurological, not philosophical. Another critical factor is energy conservation. Pressure feels heavier when the body is already depleted. Chronic release drains zinc, magnesium, B vitamins, and neurochemical reserves essential for stress resilience. Retention preserves these resources, allowing the brain and body to respond with stability instead of fatigue. When pressure arrives, the retained man has reserves. Others do not. This reserve creates a subtle psychological advantage. You stop fearing high-stakes situations because you are internally prepared. Pressure becomes familiar terrain rather than hostile ground. This familiarity reduces performance anxiety, which is often the real cause of failure, not lack of skill. Calmness under pressure is the absence of internal resistance. Breath control also improves naturally during retention. The nervous system shifts away from shallow, panic-driven breathing toward deeper diaphragmatic patterns. This alone has profound effects on stress perception. Oxygenation increases, heart rate stabilizes, and the vagus nerve activates. The body receives the signal that it is safe to remain composed even when demands are high. In social hierarchies, pressure often manifests as dominance tests. Interruptions, challenges, confrontations. Men who are internally unstable feel compelled to react quickly to protect ego. Retained men respond slowly and deliberately, which often diffuses tension without effort. Silence, when backed by calm presence, carries more authority than argument. Over time, this ability to stay composed rewires identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who survives pressure, but as someone who operates best within it. This shift is subtle but permanent. Confidence becomes situationally independent. Whether praised or criticized, the internal state remains steady. The hormonal environment also adapts. Stable testosterone signaling combined with reduced cortisol volatility creates emotional equilibrium. Mood swings flatten. Emotional reactions soften. Pressure stops triggering spikes of aggression or withdrawal. Instead, it sharpens attention and situational awareness, allowing precise responses. This is why retained men often report that chaos no longer feels chaotic. Deadlines, conflicts, uncertainty, all feel manageable. The mind stays in observer mode rather than victim mode. You see pressure as a variable to work with, not a force acting against you. Eventually, pressure becomes a tool. You learn to use it to focus the mind, energize the body, and cut through distraction. While others crumble under stress, you rise within it. This is not because life has become easier, it is because you have become internally stronger.